Khan Shalom Akim. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the other apostles of great Millstone who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akim, spreads truth and sincerity. Shalom. In this video, I want to cover this article, which is which is on endtimeheadlines.org. And the title of the article is "They Can Print Money, but They Can't Print Food." So the title is "They Can Print Money, but They Can't Print Food." And what this article is actually going into is, a little bit into what's going on upon this earth, and how in former times um, governments try to fix crises and dire situations, by you spending money and printing money to, curb the crisis. But, as things are unfolding on this earth through the spirit and power of Yahawashi, which is the name of the Heavenly Father, um, you know, this is something that they are not able to do, to make sure that the famine is not, approaching. Because these things were already prophesied in the scriptures, man. The economy is going to collapse, as it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, starting at the third verse. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong man shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and the daughters of music shall be brought low. This is going into how the keepers of the house, which refer to those that occupy themselves with the stock market and the economy, shall basically see that the way of the economy is getting worse and worse. And the grinders are ceasing, which means that there's going to be job unemployment. You know, and that's the same thing. When the sound of the grinding is low. And when it talks about that those that look out the windows be darkened, that goes into how the people are trying to visualize what the future is going to be like. There's nothing but despair and doom. There's nothing positive about it, because as we see the way of the society unfolding, things are only getting worse. Also in the fourth verse talks about the daughters of music shall be brought low, and this is something that happened during this pandemic, when the concerts and the rappers and the singers, had no possibility to make any revenue, because, nobody could go to the concerts because of the rules and regulations concerning this pandemic. But to basically summarize Ecclesiastes 12, verse 3 and 4, it's going into how the economy is going to get worse and worse. A rise in job unemployment, it's only going to get worse. So printing money, as the title of this article is saying, you know, won't have any effect to, prevent what's coming, you know. So it says, whenever there is some sort of major crisis, our politicians normally attempt to solve it by spending money. So you're trying to um, balance out the crisis by, increasing the money spending. But in this case, it isn't going to work. Our leaders can try to throw billions or even trillions of dollars at the global food crisis, and they may even convince themselves that they are making a difference. However, the truth is that they simply cannot create food out of thin air, because you're able to, produce a lot of $100 bills, a lot of €100 bills, or whatever type of currency you want to create on paper. You can do that, but the saying, you know, um, there's this saying that you cannot basically grow money on trees, right? But you're also not able to print out, the fruit, you know, and the bread, etc. The same way that you're not able to grow money on trees. So reading it again, however, the truth is that they simply cannot create food out of thin air because a certain process, is needed, for food to be created. You need to have the seeds, and if actually if you look at it, man, food, a piece of bread, is created from water, wheat, but the wheat has to be planted, has to be harvested. The oil that's going to be used within the bread, has to come from somewhere. Maybe sunflower, maybe it's olive oil. You know, the ingredients used for bread, it takes time for them to develop. You know, and as we see certain things unfold, for instance, crops have problems, being cultivated. There's a, they say that crop failure, which goes into um, let me not Slovakia. So there's a whole process being involved, before uh, foods, are ripe and ready to be harvested. You know, reading on. As I discussed last week, we are facing a worldwide nightmare of epic proportions. Fertilizer prices have spiked to absurd levels. Extremely bizarre weather patterns are playing havoc with crop production all over the planet. And the war in Ukraine has caused a growing supply crunch that will not be resolved anytime soon. There is simply no magic wand that our politicians can wave that will make this problem go away. And the fertilizer prices, if they go to such extreme, the crops that are being sold by the farmers, you know, they need to compensate, man. Those farmers need to compensate somewhere, and they're gonna put the prices up for the crops that they, are selling, which those prices are going to be calculated within the prices that, for instance, the supermarket is going to sell it to the customers. So if the fertilizer prices are so high, sometimes these farmers see if it be like we're going to change to certain crops, or it will be more beneficial to stop, change directions, or you know whatever. But the price of fertilizers does have an impact on the food that's being produced. Extremely bizarre weather patterns are playing havoc with crop production all over the planet. So that can go into how it can be so much rain, it can be snow, it can be like tornadoes, or it can be extreme drought, which then they have to compensate with watering it themselves. But there are certain weather patterns that have effect on the production of food. Reading on, and the war in Ukraine has caused a growing supply crunch that will not be resolved anytime soon. And what's going on in Ukraine, has an effect on the gas, the gasoline, wheat, the wheat, corn, sunflower oil, and like it says, these politicians can throw money at it, try to fix it, but if there is not enough supply, but there's a high demand, then that money ain't gonna save it, you see. And that's the whole thing. Of course, money is a defense, but it is not the answer to everything, you know, because money can't prevent the famine from coming because as we're prophesying, starting off with the elders apostles of GMS, elder apostle Tahar, elder apostle Gabar, elder apostle Arimlab, elder apostle Rawchaa, and then the sincere men on down, the elders, the bishops, and the sincere Akim, we've been prophesying that a famine is coming upon this earth. So this money ain't gonna change that. And eventually those that do have money, eventually it won't save them, you know. Reading on, even before 2022 came along, global food supplies were getting really tight. In fact, it is being reported that more than 800 million people did not have enough food to eat in 2020. The world was already rife with hunger before the pandemic struck. In 2020, up to 811 million people, nearly 1 in 10 people, did not have enough food. And now the world is hurtling towards an unprecedented hunger crisis. That's something that we have been prophesying about, man. The Bible talks about this. And, you know, the things that are happening upon this earth, it's like a synergistic effect. The Most High is, through the Spirit, the Most High is targeting certain, um, how you say that, like certain branches. Versus if you have um, 10, 10, 10 actual assets or facets, um, or 10 parts that play a role in the production of food or that has an impact on the, the food being produced by the farmer to eventually reach the customer. Through the spirit and power of Yahawashi, multiple parts of those 10 are being targeted. For instance, we see the fertilizer prices being affected. We see that there is war in Ukraine, which that causes a um, less less availability in certain products. We see that the weather is being affected, and we need good circumstances for crops to grow in a good way. Also, if we go to this other article that talks about a certain conspiracy concerning multiple food processing plants that they caught on fire, then you'd be like, okay, so it might not be the case that the direct impact on these plants is going to affect America as a whole because of this, but it does play a part in the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is there going to be a famine, and money ain't going to save you. They can print as much money as they want, but it's not going to prevent the famine from coming. So I'm going to read a little bit on this article. If people want to read it for themselves, they can uh, find the article themselves, of course. Um, and it says a salad packaging plant in Salinas, California, is destroyed in a massive fire. While at most the exact time, an onion processing plant in Texas is engulfed in flames. Planes nosedive into the heart of food processing plants in Georgia and Idaho. A warehouse with 50,000 pounds of food burns, as well as animal feed mill, a cereal processing plant, and a meatpacking plant. All of them are lit, taking America's precious food supply with them. Is it mere coincidence or just some bad things happening at the same time? Or is this sinister plot to starve the United States and call the herds of useless eaters? And this article, both parts are a little bit being spoken about, um, but whether of the twain it is. So with either one, with whatsoever is going on, this does have an impact in a small scale, um, you know, on the supply that can be delivered towards the people, whether it's for a couple of days, whether it's for a week, or whether that plant is out of business for a month or for a year. It does play a part, whether it's small or big. So like I mentioned, multiple most High is targeting from multiple angles. You see, and for instance, this picture that I already pulled up a little bit too early. Um, this is the amount of crops that are being planted by these different states. And it says corn planting delays are mounting in some key production states. I suspect we'll get them planted, but in less than ideal conditions that impact yield potential. And of course, we understand that in order for crops to grow, they have to grow a certain amount of time under the right conditions, enough sunlight, enough heat, enough rest, you know, um, but also enough water. So there's a certain season in which certain plants are planted, to be planted in optimal conditions, well, to the best of their ability, of course. So if those things change, it means that it's going to impact the progress of the crops as well. As it says, it impacts the yield potential. If we go to the second picture, it says only in Nebraska go from drought to 3.5, which I think is 3.5 inches of rain, which is about what would that be? I think there will be about 9 centimeters, between 9 and 10 centimeters of rain. Then snow, not much planting this week. So these farmers are already delayed. How would printing money and spending money on this help? Because this weather is not going to be affected whether money is spent on it or not. You see, these farmers are still going to be delayed. Reading on in the article, it says global hunger increased steadily during the pandemic, and now a whole host of other factors are accelerating matters. At this point, even Joe Biden is admitting that the coming food shortages are going to be real, and his administration just announced that a whopping $670 million will be directed to nations where things have already become quite desperate. And also, uh, this money is basically going to the Ukraine. Meanwhile, the people in America are starving. It also shows you where's the mind of the American government at. You know, that's strange. Trying to help other people. You know, show forth to the world that you're such a great country. Meanwhile, you're the biggest pieces of shit upon this earth. Reading on. Today, the Biden administration announced that the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Agency for International Development taking the extraordinary step to draw down the full balance of the bill immersing humanitarian trust as part of an effort to provide 670 million in food assistance to countries in need as a result of Putin's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. The world is suffering from historic levels of global food insecurity, which is being exacerbated by the impact Russia's war on Ukraine is having on global food supplies. That's crazy, you know. So they're trying to put money in there, but the whole problem of this all, is what went on between Ukraine and Russia. You know, that's what, impacted um, the gasoline, the gas, the sunflower oil, the wheat. But hey, of course, we understand that it's all by design, and it's all the will of the Heavenly Father for it to happen like this. You know, um, but hey, so they want to create the problem and then come up with the solution. You know, when all of that money is gone, Joe Biden will inevitably ask for more. But he can conjure up more food out of anything. All he can do is redistribute whatever is available. And with each passing day, this growing crisis just seems to get even worse. Last month, I wrote a long article about a series of mysterious fires that are happening at food industry facilities all over the United States. Since then, there have been more fires, including a fire that happened at a Purdue Farms facility in Virginia on Saturday evening. A fire took place at Purdue Farms facility in the South Norfolk area of Chesapeake Saturday evening. The Chesapeake Fire Department is currently working on an industrial fire at the grain processing and storage facility. Firefighters received a call at 501 Barnes Road at 8:41 p.m. after a plant operator at Purdue acknowledged and verified a fire at the location. All employees from the area were evacuated. Why are so many important food processing facilities suddenly erupting in flames? I think that all of us would like an answer to that question. Meanwhile, weather conditions continue to be a massive headache for farmers in the middle of the country. On Friday, a huge tornado ripped through an important area of rural Kansas. Following a devastating tornado that crashed down in Andover, Kansas, 40 million Americans remain under severe storm threat as two separate weather systems move through a dozen states. On Friday, a devastating tornado ripped through Kansas, leaving the city of Andover with extensive damage as it leveled multiple homes and damaged the Capitol Federal Amphitheater and the local YMCA, which saw part of its roof collapse, AWCH reported. And it's actually quite funny because the scriptures talk about how the uh, most I would visit them with tempests and with storm. This Isaiah chapter 29 verse 6, thou shalt be visited of the Lord Yahawah of hosts with thunder, with earthquake and great noise, with storm and tempest and the flame of devouring fire. If you go to the word storm, it says storm wind, storm tempest, whirlwind. So yeah, these things are gonna increase more and more. On the other side of the globe, extreme heat is the major problem right now. In India, unprecedented heat wave threatens to significantly reduce wheat production. An unusually early record-shattering heat wave in India has reduced wheat yield, raising question about how the country will balance its domestic needs with ambitions to increase exports and make up for shortfalls due to Russia's war in Ukraine. Since the depths of the pandemic, the price of wheat has more than doubled, and many experts are anticipating that it will go a lot higher from here. Of course, fertilizer prices have been going up even faster. Some fertilizer prices have more than tripled, and as a result, much less fertilizer will be used all over the globe this growing season. In Brazil, one of the largest farming companies just announced that it will be substantially reducing the amount of fertilizer that it uses in 2022. Soaring prices for industrial fertilizer have forced one of Brazil's largest farmers to initiate plans to reduce nutrient spreadings on fields by at least a quarter in 2022-2023, according to Bloomberg. You see, so they can print the money, people can have money, you know, because the thing is with the hunger crisis, coming closer and closer, there's still people that have the financial needs as well to still supply, for their needs. Of course, their um, purchasing power is also going to be less because the price of these things is going to rise as well. And people gonna store up food, now that they can. But all these things, man, money, riches, stored food, spending money on trying to um, curb the problem of crises ain't gonna help you, because Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 15, the sword is without and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. And this is going into how you have within the cities, you are going to have, you know, dire diseases and pestilences and great famine. So those that are in the cities, you know, they're going to be struck by this. When it talks about the sword is without, it means that, on the outside of the cities, you're going to have people with weapons, man. Whether it's martial law troopers, whether it's um, military personnel, you know, of course, you're gonna have people with weapons as well within the cities, you know. But people gonna suffer, man. You, outside the city, you ain't gonna be safe, and within the cities, you're not gonna be safe neither. People gonna be struck, man, by the sword, which is the modern day weapon, which is the gun, the pestilences, which are diseases. People gonna die in the cities more and more. If the city's gonna be laid down, economy is gonna crash. Things gonna go to shit. Do you think there's still gonna be running water? The sewer is gonna be, running nice and clean. Do you think the dead bodies are gonna be picked up and brought to the funeral home? No, man. All these things gonna bring forth pestilence, man. And because of the inavailability of food, people gonna go crazy, man. People gonna go crazy. Man, okay, let me grab it. Oh, phone. This is the second Ezra, chapter 15. Um, Let me start at verse 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. It's referring to martial law. The time is going to come that martial law is going to be instituted. Things going to be so crazy upon this earth that people going to riot, rebel, trying to revolt against the government. And basically, anarchy is going to exist. And the way that the government is going to try to combat that is by, putting forth the military on the streets, because martial law is going to be instituted uh, when civilian forces, which is referring to the police or um, normal medical personnel, are not able to cope with the situation. In order to cope with the situation, they're going to institute martial law. That's going to happen, and those martial law troopers are going to be situated on checkpoints, which most likely is going to be with the in entrances and the entrances within to enter into a city. Multiple posts within a city. You know, so they're going to be situated at those locations, man. So if you try to get out of the city, you don't comply, the sword is prepared for you. Verse 18, for because of their pride the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy the houses with the sword and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So because there's going to be great tribulation upon this earth, which is going to include famine, a lack of bread, those people that you were cool with, in the world, that you were cool with, because they're your neighbor, you just try to, get along to get along, they're going to turn on you. Why? Because if you have some food they can acquire, they're going to choose that food over you. They're going to choose themselves over you. See? So, back in Ezekiel chapter 7, um, in verse 15 again, the sword is without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, you see. So, outside of the cities where you have the fields and the plains, you know, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. But they that escape of them shall escape, and shall be on the mountains like doves in the valleys, all of them mourning every one for his iniquity. All hands shall be feeble, and all knees shall be weak as water. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads. So these people are going to be in a state of mourning, because that's what it represents. The sackcloth, it represents mourning. Verse 19, they shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord Yahawah. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill up their bowels, because it is a stumbling block of their iniquity. So the riches that these people possess, it's not going to deliver them, and their money ain't going to save them. Their golden Rolex, whatever, man. All these things are not going to be able to save them, nor is them printing money um, gonna deliver them in those days, man, and in the time to come. It ain't gonna help. It ain't gonna prevent things from happening, you know, because you can't eat paper money, you can't eat silver, you can't eat gold, you know, you can't do those things, man. And that's where the beautiful thing comes back. True riches, back in the days, there was having livestock, cattle, and gold and silver. So the true commodity, the true riches in the time to come is food to be able to survive. This is Proverbs chapter 11, verse 4. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. So the things that you have, the substance, is not gonna be beneficial unto you, man. Righteousness delivered from death, man. Turning back to Bahasham, believe on the Lord Yahawashi. Try to amend your ways. Try to put up that old man. Believe in Bahasham. Have faith that during these times is going to help you. A little bit of information on famine. I brought out a lot of times in the last couple of weeks, but there just through the spirit it is relevant and edifying. So it says a famine is a widespread scarcity of food. But that goes into basically a lack of food, because then the demand is higher than the supply, caused by several factors, including war. What's going on with Russia and Ukraine right now is a beautiful example of how a war is causing a famine, or at least a scarcity of food. Because, like I mentioned already, look at the sunflower oil, the wheat, the gas. You know, natural disasters, which goes into floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions. And in the article, we could read about it as well. We could read about that, how that also was going on in America. Crop failure. Harvesting is the process of gathering a ripe crop from the field. Reaping is the cutting of grain or pulse for harvest, typically using a scythe, sickle, or reaper. Population imbalance, which they say then that is their widespread poverty, which goes into having the funds to buy certain things. It says poverty is the state of having few material possessions or little income. Poverty can have diverse social, economic, and political causes and effects. And back in the days, instead of widespread poverty, here used to be inflation. So I have that on deck as well. But with the correct understanding of poverty, you still come to the word inflation because inflation goes back to purchasing power. If you have very little income compared to, for instance, if you have 1,600 euros or $1,600, you were able to purchase 100 type of products with that 1,600, whether it was euro or whether it was a dollar. But if prices change and you're only able to buy 80 of those same products, it means that you your income is not equating to the amount that it used to be. The money is worth less. You can buy less with your money. Let's go to that inflation. It says in economics, inflation is a general increase in prices of goods and services in the economy, which that's going to happen, depending on supply and demand. When the general price levels rises, each each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services. Consequently, inflation corresponds to a reduction in the purchasing power of money. You see? Inflation corresponds to a reduction in the purchasing power of money, which that goes into power that your $1 or €1 has. Purchasing power is the amount of goods and services that can be purchased with a unit of currency. For example, if one had taken one unit of currency to a store in 1950, it would have been possible to buy a greater number of items that will be the case today, indicating that the currency had a greater purchasing power in the 1950s. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So right now we're hearing about wars and rumors of wars. We see what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, and we're hearing about things happening between China and Taiwan, if I'm correct. Um, you know, we should not be afraid or troubled by these things because hey, we understand that these things need to happen, and many things need to happen as well. That's why it says, "But the end is not yet." For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in the first places. We see that this is either happening or is about to happen. The famines is something that is going to come. Of course, upon this earth, there are famines here and there, but there's going to be a worldwide famine that's going to affect the whole world. Pestilences, we just dealt with a pandemic. We're in the aftermath, and you know, um, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. In the wintertime. It talks about earthquakes in diverse places. Um, so all in all, if you look at these things, you can see that these things are happening right now, simultaneously. Verse 8 says, "All these are the beginning of sorrow." So that's the time that we're in. Things are getting worse and worse and worse by the day. This was all prophesied. This is second Esdras chapter 15 and verse 5. Behold, said the Lord Yahawah, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. That's what's going to happen, whether you want to believe it or not. This is Romans 3, verse 3. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of Yahawah without effect? So even if if there are people that don't believe the things that we're saying, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, Lord willing being his mouthpiece, to declare his righteousness, and declare his judgments upon the earth, it's not gonna it's not gonna change anything, man. It's not gonna change it if you don't believe. These things are still gonna uh, come to pass. The Most High forbid, yea, let the Most High be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. This is Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 33. And when this cometh to pass, Lord will come, then shall they know that there hath been a prophet among them. So with that, I hope that this lesson was edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of great Millstone, who teach and rule well, and shalom to the sincere Akim, spread his truth and sincerity. Shalom.